Hey, Bobby Darin fans, Sam Tellerico here. Glad you found me with the new name change since Daily Dose of Darin wasn't exactly accurate. Hope you like this new one, Bobby Darin to be different. We spotlight lesser known works of the late, great Bobby Darin, who also happens to be my biological father. And stick around to the end of this video, you'll actually see the DNA confirmation that I saw courtesy of a screenshot that will hopefully answer any questions that you might have as exactly to how I am related to Bobby Darin and what makes me think I am his biological son. Today's installment, I'm recording this on July 1st, 2023. The inspiration comes from a magazine from July 1962 called TV Radio Mirror. You can think of it as a cross between Us Weekly and Tiger Beat. Had a lot of titillating stories, clickbait, if you will, for the 60s, with headlines like Liz leaves Eddie Fisher. On the cover of this particular issue, Vince Edwards, who played Dr. Ben Casey on TV, was the cover boy. Something like Lady Doctor steals Vince's heart or something like that. That's what this magazine was full of. But it also featured record reviews. And in this issue, July 1962, there were two reviews featuring Bobby Darin. One, his solo album, Bobby Darin Sings Ray Charles, which was well reviewed. Bobby Darin covering Ray Charles. I think it got 3 stars. And another one that Bobby Darin was part of an ensemble. Also worth mentioning, I think, is there was an article, it was an interview with Sandra Dee called The Honeymoon is Over. She had recently given birth, she and Bobby Darin, who were married at the time, to their only son, Dodd Darin. And she was talking about in this article how she couldn't find the nipple for the bottle to feed Dodd. It's kind of funny if you get a hold of the article. TV Radio Mirror, July 1962. I think you'll get a kick out of it. But back to the reviews, and the album that features the song we're going to feature today. It comes from the original soundtrack to the motion picture State Fair. State Fair was based on a novel written in the 1930s by a guy, I think his name was Phil Strong. They made a motion picture out of it in the 1930s starring the humorist Will Rogers. Then they did a remake in the 1940s with a score by none other than Richard Rodgers and Oscar Hammerstein. Big names, but no real kicking big, humongous, hummable tunes in State Fair. Somebody got the great idea to remake it in 1962, directed by Jose Ferrer, and Bobby Darin got second billing out of the 4 leads. In the number 4 position was Anne Margaret. Bye Bye Birdie had not come out yet. She was still thought of as an up-and-coming, rising young ingenue. Bobby Darin's love interest was third billed Pamela Tiffin. Bobby played a character named Jerry Dundee, who was a TV reporter who falls in love with farm girl. The character played by Pamela Tiffin. I think in the novel and in the first movie, the character even had a different name, Pat Gilbert, and was a newspaper reporter. In the 1962 version, they made it so modern, they made Bobby's character a TV reporter. Getting top billing was one of the biggest stars of the day, Pat Boone. I know, Pat Boone over Bobby Darin. What's that all about? Well, Pat Boone actually had 6 motion pictures, maybe even 7, released by the time State Fair came out. Bobby Darin only had 2, not counting his cameo in Pepe. Prior to State Fair, Bobby acted in Too Late Blues, where he starred, a drama directed by John Cassavetes, known for being one of Stella Stevens' earliest roles, maybe even her debut. It's a kick-ass movie, and speaking of kicking ass, Bobby Darin gets in this fight scene with the aforementioned cover boy Vince Edwards, Ben Casey. They get in this real brawl, and Vince Edwards kicks the crap out of my dad. So too bad about that. But getting top billing again was Pat Boone, who even on the charts, he'd been making records since 1955, had 6 number 1 singles, I think a total of maybe 54, 55 singles to make the Billboard Hot 100. Bobby Darin by this point only had something like 22 or something. And only 1 number 1, Mac the Knife, of course. But I will stack Bobby Darin's biggest known 4 singles, Bliss Splash, Dream Lover, Mac the Knife, Beyond the Sea, against Pat Boone's 6 number ones any day. I love Pat Boone. He's still with us. Pat, if you're watching this, I think you're great. You got a bad rap for covering R&B hits in a white bread, homogenized style, if you will. But you made up for it with your heavy metal album from 1997, No More Mr. Nice Guy, where if you've never heard that, that's a trip. Pat Boone does a big band versions of all these heavy metal hard rock hits. But it's Bobby Darin who we are focusing on, specifically his number from State Fair, the 1962 motion picture, in which he sings to Pamela Tiffin's character. It's interesting that the scene comes immediately after a scene with Pat Boone and Ann-Margret, in which Pat's character proposes to Margaret's character. And then you cut away to Bobby Darin wooing Pamela Tiffin, and the acting that Bobby Darin, taking nothing away from Pat Boone, he's great, was eye-opening. I thought it was just so passionate, so sultry. It made me think, what would have happened if Pat Boone and Bobby Darin had switched roles? Or if Ann-Margret and Pamela Tiffin would have switched roles? What if Bobby Darin was on screen with Ann-Margret? I think that just would have been sizzling hot and set the screens on fire. Just my opinion. But what we're left is something wonderful. I should say that the movie wasn't all that great reviewed. The original soundtrack only got 1 star in TV Radio Mirror magazine. The album to the soundtrack did make it to the number 12 position on the Billboard album charts, which is not too shabby at all. The song that Bobby Darin sings in the motion picture was written specifically for this movie. It was not in the original musical version from the 40s. Richard Rodgers wrote the music and lyrics himself because Oscar Hammerstein had passed away in 1960. The song is called This Isn't Heaven. And when you listen to the lyrics, it's almost like the antithesis of Bobby Darin's huge Dream Lover single, in which he's, pining away for a fantasy girl. Dream lover, where are you? In this, he's singing it to Pamela Tiffin saying, you're no fantasy. You are the real thing. You are the one I want. This isn't heaven. You're not an angel. You are a real live woman that I want. It's the kind of song that you would definitely want somebody singing to you with all the passion that he does. I might add that Bobby Darin does a hell of a job of lip syncing this as well. It's superbly delivered. I think it could be a classic standard. There's nobody else I know that's covered This Isn't Heaven inexplicably. I think it really, really stands up and holds up well. So I want you to enjoy it and listen to it, hopefully as much as I do. Subscribe to the channel. And the graphic that you're going to see on it and just over the song, let me give you just a little bit of background, what you need to know to fully understand it. Bobby Darin was born in 1937. His mother was Nina Casotto Walden. She later married a man named Carmine Charlie Maffia. A few years later, in the 1940s, 1942, I think, they together, Charlie and Nina, had 3 children. The third youngest was a man named Gary Walden, who would be Bobby Darin's half-brother. He was born in 1956. And Gary Walden and his wife had 2 children. One was a daughter named Erica, spelled very uniquely with an H in the name. So that's the background information that you need to know for this graphic, which comes from a very popular online DNA testing kit that I'm sure you're familiar with. So I hope you enjoy this installment of Darin to Be Different and really, really enjoy This Isn't Heaven. Thanks so much for watching. And I love your comments, by the way. Keep them coming.
This isn't heaven, who needs it? This is the earth and you. You're not an angel who wants one. You in the flesh will do. You're so real, I'm reeling. Who called you divine? Watch me walk across the ceiling, shouting, you're mine, you're mine. This isn't heaven, so what? You're not an angel, no, you're not. You're mine, you're mine, you're mine. You're so real, I'm reeling. Who called you divine? Watch me walk across the ceiling, shouting you're mine. This isn't heaven, so what? You're not an angel, no, you're not.